So let's just, we talk about those three things. Like, what does preparation for the meeting look like? So what, if you're mentoring a new Scrum Master or Agile facilitator, like, what do you mentor them on? Like, how to prepare for this meeting? So let's
Yeah.
just take that part.
Yeah. So preparing for the meeting. So first is that sponsor meeting, really understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and even if it's yourself going through and ask those questions of the who, what, why, and how, like
Mm-hmm.
going through those and taking some time and
Mm-hmm.
doing that. Um,
Right.
Understanding that it's important to step back and do this actually might be first,
Mm.
because you can
Yeah.
run on autopilot pretty easily. So first, like acknowledging that you have to do that, then stepping back and knowing that. And
Yeah.
really, once you have some answers to that, that's going to trigger what else you do. One of the things is kind of a basic rule of thumb for every hour of, like when you're training, which it's not the
Mm-hmm.
same rule for meetings, but it
Right.
influences the meeting one. When you're training,
Yeah.
they kind of say for every hour of class, you have 10 hours of preparation. And that I think that's true. For
Yeah.
meetings, it can get close to that. For every hour, you should at least have, equal time, if not double the time, really planning it. And the better you are at spending some time designing that meeting, the
Mm-hmm.
more successful and easier the meeting will go. And
Right.
it doesn't need to look so designed when you're in the session. It's like software. The better you've designed it, the more user friendly it is, and it doesn't look over designed when you go to use it. So that's kind of your
Yeah.
goal for meetings, is design it to a level that it looks easy and like it's a automatic flow for the people that attend it. So
Yeah.
really understand what it's about with a sponsor and then spend some time doing the design of it.
Right. And Jolene, I mean, that's right. We have spent 10, 15 hours designing for a 2 hours workshop. And obviously this is
Yeah.
around teaching facilitation, but we talked about the impact of when we teach them this concept. What was the impact that it's going to have on them? Who are the different kind of students, their experience level? How do we make it real for them? What kind of activities do we use to like connect the concepts? So
Yeah.
there is a lot of that. And those are the same things, similar things that people have to think about uh, in meeting preparation.
Yeah,
Um,
knowing your audience is key. That's one of the things that you said, is really knowing who you're doing this for.
mm-hmm,
It is a key part of it. So establishing the who part is a lot more than just a list of names.
mm-hmm,
It's
yep.
understanding their perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And let's just kind of go into like the kicking off the meeting. Once you have prepared, once you've met with the meeting sponsor, really thought through like the meeting, who, what, when, where, how, and so then now it's time comes when the day's there, you have to kick off the meeting. So what are some practices that you mentor or teach people on?
Well, so you have to tell them all of that, the who, what, when, why, and where. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, pulling from the Agile Coaching Institute, one of the tools techniques I like to use and teach people is the power start. It's
Oh,
so it's
I didn't know.
so
I didn't know it came from Agile Coaching Institute.
yes,
All right.
it does. And it's a it's a huge time saver, and that's an acronym for
Mm-hmm.
purpose, outcome, what's in it for me, engagement, and roles and responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
But the important part of it is really a narrative that really lets the grounds the group in what you're going to get done that day.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose and outcome sound very similar, but it's like there's a why you're getting together, and it's what you're going to walk away from. Outcome
Mm.
oftentimes is more deliverable based. There might be a literal deliverable, or at least a observable deliverable within an outcome.
Right. So,
And then
like for example, in a retrospective, team retrospective, what does that? How do you uh, kind of?
oh, you want to put me on the spot and have me do one, huh?
Well,
So
I can.
no, I can do it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's all about framing, right? So in
Hmm.
a team retrospective, it is like, I'm just going to pretend you're all my team. So
Yeah.
hey guys, we're here to getting together today. It's been a great sprint.
Mm-hmm.
or a challenging sprint, whatever it's been an interesting sprint, and I really want to know what you guys think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're here to get, we get together on a regular basis
Mm-hmm.
to improve, to look at how our sprint went and what we like
Mm-hmm.
about it and what we want to keep using and doing more of, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
some of those things that we didn't like and we want to improve of.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's important, you want to pay attention. I know it can be boring and you might
Mm-hmm.
not, you might get sick of what seems like the same questions, but why you care is it's
Mm-hmm.
really about creating the team that you want to create. And
Mm-hmm.
so your input in here and your decisions here help us evolve the team in the way that you want to
Mm-hmm.
evolve. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for you to give your opinions, be clear with what you want. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's not any finger pointing, because you don't need to do, it's not about any one person's, it's about the system that we're taking a look at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm acting as the facilitator, so my opinions are going to be put on the table for today. I'm looking for your guys' answers around this, but I do want you to get up and move and be involved.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
no, that was beautiful, Jolene. I mean, you covered the entire thing. I just meant the P and the O, but like, yeah,
yeah.
you did the entire thing beautifully. So yeah, I mean, you communicated what the purpose was, getting together as a team, kind of looking at what happened in the sprint, and then we will look at the outcome, and then you made it very clear that this is about looking at the system, and this is their meeting and their team, and you made your role very clear that hey, you're a facilitator, so your opinions here you might kind of step in and kind of share something, but it's not the main thing. The main people of the meeting are the team. So
Yeah.
that was beautifully covered.
Yeah, one reason I jumped into, because it's the best way to look at what it is the middle part there was about why they should be engaged,
Mm-hmm.
and why they wanted to talk about it. Because if we don't let people who show up know why they care, they
Mm-hmm.
will be multitasking. That,
Right.
keeping someone's attention is really hard. So when we
Mm-hmm.
design our meetings, that's something to keep in mind, that people can only pay attention for maybe 10 minutes ish. Um, you might think of it as a TV culture, but it's more that TV was designed over what our brains naturally do. We've got about 10 minutes in us, and that's all we can pay attention. It's
Yeah.
just, that's physically what we are wired to do. And so you've got to give a person a reason to even give you that 10 minutes. And then
Yeah.
with that 10 minutes, you better serve them well and then switch it up to get to be a little bit different, so you can get another 10 minutes out of them. But
Yeah.
when you start up a meeting, whatever form you're going to do, you need to give them a reason to pay attention. So I love that you picked one of the Agile ceremonies, because oftentimes, because we do them all the time, we forget people have to be convinced to pay attention. Oh, they'll just come. But then you
Yeah.
end up getting really bored and really unproductive Agile
Yeah.
ceremonies. And then there's not a point to be doing them.
Right. Right. And that's a beautiful way of setting the stage, and kind of showing up very intentional. So that's great. So that's a great way to open up a session. So that is, you've done a big part of the work. You've started the meeting with a good intention. Everybody knows why they're there. What they're going to do over the next time box. So let's just kind of look at some of the things that, as a facilitator, you can do uh, while you're doing the work or in the meeting. And you would have already prepared this in your meeting design and planning. But what are some things that shows up while you're facilitating the meeting? What are some things that facilitators need to know?
Hmm. There's so much.
Yep.
So I think, as you said, you will have designed this in advance, but make sure that you're using some techniques that fit what you're doing. I talked about the
Mm-hmm.
product visioning earlier. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things we often do when we product vision is spend a lot of time talking about the things that people already know and agree on. There
Mm-hmm.
are different techniques out there that optimize that let
Mm-hmm.
you write down the things that you agree on and not talk
Mm-hmm.
about it anymore, and then move on to the things that you don't might not have alignment on and you need to get alignment. So
Mm-hmm.
use varying techniques to get to the thing that you need to get to, because
Mm-hmm.
people like to talk, they really do, and they will talk
Yeah.
forever. And so you, as a facilitator, your job is to change up and move things in a way that's going to help them get to place that they want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a
Mm-hmm.
key part. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing that I would say, keep it moving. I talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Always keep it moving. And then be aware the who's in the room, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
people bring a lot of different personalities to the room and a lot of different things that have happened in their day,
Mm-hmm.
and so, do things to help ground them and show up in the room, and then
Mm-hmm.
also treat people with the respect of knowing that they can have a different perspective. And there's all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of different processes around, we play different games with dysfunctions to
Yeah.
try to go around, people are going to show up, and including us,
Yeah.
that one of the questions I always ask at the end then is, what's your dysfunction when you show up in it, because we
What drives
all
you
have
crazy?
them. we
Yep,
all we
100%.
all have them.
So, I mean, a little bit of like self-awareness as well. Like, hey, it's not just, you're thinking about the room, like what makes you go crazy, and like what will you do? How will you self-manage yourself if something like that happens, so then you can be effective in facilitating this meeting.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Obviously, we teach a 16 hours class on this, so we're not going to be able to talk about the nuances and what happens. How do you prepare? How do you think about different things? But let's just keep it moving, and let's just talk about. There's a lot of things that happens within the meeting, and there's like things like decision making. How do you do decision making, and then how do you collect the data, and how do you help people decide? How do you help people do brainstorming? So there's all of that. But let's just go into like, you've done the work. Now it's time to close the meeting. So what are some things that we need to know around closing the meeting?
That's going to depend a lot about what you did. And the first thing is,
Mm-hmm.
don't skip that step. Like, that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I would say is, don't skip the close. So often we run out of time. So we're in the middle of exploring the topic, exploring the content, the agenda, and we've left no time left to close that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you leave space. And I'll admit that I'm guilty of this myself often, because there's so much good stuff and you just don't have enough time ever. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but leaving some space in another thing that I pull from my training space that I think is very applicable to the meeting world too, is make this real for people. So
Mm-hmm.
often, like, we will show a PowerPoint, we will talk about something, it will be done from the front of the room, and we will expect, because we've said it, then everybody's in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people to truly make it real and make it theirs is important. So there's
Yep.
different ways to do that. Like, closing circles is one technique that we do, like getting people
Mm-hmm.
to write something down for themselves. What is your to do out of this meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the traditional stuff is still valid. Is what are the action items and who owns them and what's going to be the follow up? Those can still be very valid in
Mm-hmm.
even with agility. When you're running
Yep.
things with agility, clear is kind, and the more clear you can be on who's
Mm-hmm.
doing what, the better it is, as long as that's not the driving factor, that the
Mm-hmm.
reason you're being clear is about people, not process.
Right.
You always want to be clear, so a lot of that
Yeah.
standard stuff is really important.
Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We'll be sure to come back with more exciting videos on Agile topics.